I noticed the sharp pang of fear in Parker's eyes as soon as I approached the park bench where he sat alone. The setting sun cast long shadows, but I could see his tear-stained cheeks glistening. My heart sank when he turned to me and asked in a small voice, "Why does Mommy say I'm not real family, Grandma?" Those words cut deep. I pulled him into a tight embrace, feeling his little body tremble with confusion and hurt. How could Corinne be so cruel to an innocent child? Anger bubbled inside me, but I kept my tone gentle as I assured Parker, "Of course you're real family, sweetheart. Don't ever doubt that." Parker sniffled, clinging to me. "But she didn't invite me to Leah's party. She said it was just for the real family." His brow furrowed as he recalled Corinne's heartless words. I stroked his hair, fighting back tears of my own. "Come on, let's get some dinner and we can talk more, okay?" Parker nodded, slipping his small hand into mine as we headed to the cozy diner down the street. Over grilled cheese sandwiches and fries, Parker opened up about the games Corinne made him play, like being locked in his room for hours when she got mad. My stomach churned at the thought of my sweet grandson being treated that way. Determined to protect him, I promised we'd make sure those games never happened again. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with how to confront this situation. One thing was clear: Corinne's behavior towards Parker had crossed a line, and I wouldn't stand by and let it continue. First thing in the morning, I'd talk to Colin and get to the bottom of this. After a restless night, I picked Parker up from Colin and Corinne's house early the next morning for our usual Saturday breakfast tradition at the local diner. He greeted me with a bright smile, clearly putting aside the pain from yesterday. Still, I couldn't shake the knot in my stomach over what he'd revealed. As we slid into our usual booth, Parker chattered excitedly about the new video game he wanted. I listened with a forced smile, my mind elsewhere. When our food arrived, I decided it was time to gently probe further. "Parker, you know how you told me about those games Corinne makes you play?" I began cautiously. He nodded through a mouthful of pancakes. "Yeah, like when she locks me in my room. It's not so fun, but she says it's to teach me lessons." My heart dropped. "Does she lock you in there for a long time?" "Uh-huh, sometimes for hours." He shrugged as if it were nothing. "She only lets me out to eat dinner if I'm good." White-hot anger flashed through me, but I kept my expression neutral. "And does Daddy know about these games?" Parker hesitated, then shook his head slowly. "No, Corinne says it's our little secret and that Daddy wouldn't understand." I fought back tears, realization dawning. This was no game, it was abuse, plain and simple. And that manipulative witch had brainwashed my grandson into keeping it hidden from his own father. Reaching across the table, I took Parker's little hands in mine. "Sweetheart, that's not okay. No grown-up should ever lock a child away like that, even as a game. It's very wrong." His eyes widened with confusion and worry. "But," Corinne said. "I know, honey," I cut him off gently. "But Corinne isn't telling the truth. Those aren't games at all." For a long moment, Parker stared at me, processing what I'd said. Then his lower lip began to tremble. I don't understand." Pulling him into a fierce hug, I whispered fiercely, "It's going to be okay, Parker. I promise you, Grandma's going to make sure nothing like that ever happens again." After dropping Parker back off, I wasted no time confronting my son Colin about what was going on in his household. He agreed to meet me at a cafe downtown during his lunch break. Colin looked tired but smiled warmly when he saw me. As we hugged, I struggled to keep my anger in check. How could he not know the cruelty his own son was enduring? "You look stressed, Mom. Everything okay?" he asked as we took our seats. I took a deep breath. "Colin, we need to talk about Parker and the way Corinne has been treating him." His brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? Corinne loves Parker like her own." "Does she?" I challenged, keeping my voice low, "because Parker told me some very disturbing things about games Corinne makes him play." Colin's expression darkened. "What kind of games?" Meeting his gaze steadily, I relayed what Parker had told me about being locked away for hours, only released for meals if he was good. With each word, I saw the blood drain from my son's face. "No, Corinne wouldn't," he stammered, shaking his head in denial. "Parker also said she made him keep it a secret from you because you wouldn't understand," I pressed on, my voice thick with barely contained fury. Why is your wife isolating and punishing your child behind your back? Colin slumped back in his chair, eyes wide with horror and disbelief. For a long moment he was speechless. When he finally found his voice, it was strained and quiet. I had no idea. He dragged a hand down his face, clearly shaken. Mom, you have to believe me. If I'd known... My heart broke for him, but I refused to let misplaced sympathy cloud my judgment. Not when Parker's well-being was at stake. I believe you, I said firmly. But that doesn't make this okay, Colin. That woman is abusing your son, psychologically, if not physically. This has to stop. Colin flinched at the word abuse, his eyes haunted. But he gave a slow, pained nod. You're right. He looked at me pleadingly. What do we do? Reaching across the table, I squeezed his hand. First, we document everything. Every incident, every shred of evidence we can find. And then we take it to the authorities. There was no other choice. As much as it killed me to hurt my own son this way, Corinne's true colors had been revealed. And I would do whatever it took to protect my grandson. After my tense meeting with Colin, I knew I needed reinforcements in this battle against Corinne. There was only one person who loved Parker as fiercely as I did, his biological mother, Elsie. I hadn't spoken to Elsie in years, not since her bitter divorce and custody battle with Colin. She'd been devastated when the judge awarded Colin full custody, deeming his higher income and stable home environment the better choice for Parker. I remember how heartbroken she was, having to leave her son behind. Tracking down her number, I psyched myself up before making the call. When Elsie answered, her voice was laced with surprise and caution. Lena, is everything okay? Not exactly, I admitted heavily. It's about Parker. There's something you need to know. I proceeded to lay it all out. Parker's revelations about being locked away, Corinne's manipulative secrecy, the signs of psychological abuse. As I spoke, Elsie's shocked silence stretched longer and longer. Oh my God, she finally whispered, her voice cracking with horror and guilt. How did I not see this coming? I knew that woman was trouble, but I never imagined. Neither of us could have predicted this level of cruelty, I assured her, trying to keep my tone calm and reassuring despite my own anger. What matters now is getting Parker away from her. You're right. You're absolutely right. Elsie took a shaky breath. Please tell me you have a plan, Lena. I'll do anything at all to protect my son. Relieved to have her on board, I outlined my initial ideas, documenting every incident, gathering testimonies from teachers or friends who may have witnessed anything suspicious, anything to build an airtight case. Once we have solid proof, we take it to the authorities and fight for full custody, I stated firmly. I won't let Parker suffer another day under that woman's thumb. There was a determined edge to Elsie's voice when she responded. Neither will I. That evil bitch doesn't know what's coming for her. At last, we were a united front, two mothers willing to go to war for the well-being of our little boy. Corinne didn't stand a chance against the fury she'd unleashed. Over the next few weeks, I became a woman possessed. Documenting every potential incident of Corinne's abuse towards Parker consumed my waking hours. I kept a meticulous log, recording dates, times, and details no matter how seemingly insignificant. Colin was my inside source, keeping me updated on any troubling behavior he witnessed at home. The guarded, haunted look never left his eyes these days. Part of me ached for the emotional turmoil he must be enduring, but the other part couldn't help but feel he should have seen the signs sooner. Elsie and I communicated constantly, united in our determination to gather as much evidence as possible. She spoke to Parker's teachers, friends' parents, anyone who could potentially corroborate the pattern of neglect and psychological torment. A few times, I caught glimpses of the old Corinne through Colin's exhausted recounts, a doting wife and mother one moment, lashing out with cruel indifference the next. It made my blood boil to imagine Parker subjected to such an unstable, toxic environment. She just snapped at him over leaving a toy in the living room. Colin told me one night, shoulders slumped with defeat, called him worthless and said he was going to his room until he learned to be a decent human being. White-hot rage lanced through me. He's 8 years old, I hissed furiously. What kind of monster talks that way to a child? Colin could only shake his head helplessly. I knew it killed him to see the truth about his wife's twisted nature. but I refused to show any sympathy. Not when Parker's well-being was at stake. The final straw came when I installed hidden cameras in the house and reviewed the footage a week later. There it was, clear as day. Video of Corinne shoving Parker into his room and dead-bolting the door from the outside, the blank look of cold indifference on her face chilling me to the bone. That was all the proof I needed. Elsie and I immediately contacted a lawyer to begin the custody proceedings. There would be no more waiting, no more allowing this vile woman unchecked access to my grandson. It was time for Corinne to reap what she'd sown. And not a force on earth would stop me from protecting Parker and getting him the loving home he deserved. With our case file thick with damning evidence, Elsie, Colin, and I knew it was time to confront Corinne directly. We arranged to meet her at the house one evening after she returned from work. The tension was suffocating as we waited in the living room. Colin's knee bounced anxiously, while Elsie's hands were clenched into white-knuckled fists. As for me, I was rigid with determined fury, willing my anger to fuel me rather than spiral out of control. At last, we heard Corinne's key in the lock. She blustered in with her usual self-important air, pulling up short when she saw the three of us waiting grimly. "Well, this is a surprise," she said with forced brightness. "What's going on?" I stood, leveling her with my most withering glare. "Don't play dumb, Corinne. We know everything." Her brow furrowed in mock confusion. "I'm not sure I understand." "We have proof of how you've been treating Parker," Elsie cut her off, voice laced with contempt. "Videos, testimonies, all of it." In an instant, the fake smile slipped from Corinne's face. Her eyes narrowed to slits. "You've been spying on me?" "We had to," Colin said quietly, once we knew what was really going on. For a long, tense moment, Corinne simply stared at us in disbelieving fury. Finally, she seemed to find her voice again. "You judgmental fools have no idea what it's like," she exploded, "having to deal with that little brat 24/7 after you abandoned him." She whirled on Elsie. "He's nothing but a constant reminder of your failure as a wife." Elsie recoiled like she'd been slapped, face pale. Disgusted, I stepped forward, unflinching even as Corinne's furious glare turned to me. "That little brat is a child, you deranged harpy. How dare you punish and demean an innocent boy just to soothe your own miserable insecurities?" "He's my stepson," Corinne snarled, spit flying. "I'll discipline him however I see fit. You'd all see that if you weren't blinded by your ridiculous attachment to that sniveling little—" "Enough!" Colin's roar silenced us all. He was deathly pale, shaking with rage and revulsion. "I've heard enough," he said in a deadly quiet voice. "Mother, Elsie, show her the evidence, every last sickening second of it." As video clips and documentation spilled out, incontrovertible proof of the psychological torment Parker had endured, Corinne's sneering arrogance gradually melted away, replaced by ashen horror and fear. For once, the monster had been laid bare, and there would be no innocuous discipline defense to hide behind. Not this time, not ever again. The ensuing custody battle was nothing short of a war. Corinne's high-priced lawyers tried every underhanded tactic to discredit our evidence and paint her as a doting stepmother just trying to instill discipline. I wanted to vomit at their transparent lies. But we had the trump card. Cold, hard proof of Corinne's mental and emotional abuse captured on video. No amount of courtroom theatrics could erase those chilling images of her berating Parker, locking him away for hours on end with cruel indifference. On the stand, Corinne was a master of faux tears and remorse. "I only wanted what was best for Parker," she simpered to the blank-faced judge. "Yes, I made some mistakes, but I've learned from them. Taking him away from his father would be unfair punishment." Elsie could barely contain her rage during that pitiful performance. I had to grip her arm to keep her from leaping up and unleashing the torrent of fury she'd been holding back. When it was finally our turn, we let the videos speak for themselves. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom as scene after scene of Corinne's calculated cruelty played out. The judge's eyes remained an inscrutable mask. Colin's sworn testimony, however, proved to be the final nail in Corinne's coffin. With hollow eyes, my son quietly, unflinchingly confirmed every word, every recorded instant of abuse inflicted on his own child, the child he should have protected all along. "I failed Parker in the worst way," he said, voice thick with self-loathing. I failed to see the woman I loved for the vindictive monster she truly is. I can never make up for that, but I can make sure he's never exposed to her poisonous influence again. You could have heard a pin drop after that. Even Corinne's slick lawyers seemed to realize the futility of pushing back any further. In the end, the judge's ruling was severe but fair. Full custody was awarded to Elsie, with strict orders that Corinne have zero contact or visitation rights with Parker. Moreover, the court directed Child Services to launch a full investigation into potential criminal charges for child endangerment. As the sentence was read, I watched a kaleidoscope of emotions flicker across Corinne's face. Disbelief, rage, terror. Good. Let the repercussions finally catch up to her twisted actions. Beside me, Colin sat in numb silence, awash in the realization that his beloved wife had been a complete and utter lie this entire time. I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was overshadowed by sheer overwhelming relief. Parker was finally safe. Corinne's reign of terror was over. In the weeks following the custody ruling, I found myself wrestling with a tangled knot of emotions. Relief that Parker was finally free from Corinne's toxic grasp. Vindication that justice had been served, but also lingering anger towards my son Colin for being so blind, and devastation over the fracture in our once solid family. Whenever I went to visit Parker at Elsie's place, my heart swelled with joy to see him smiling and carefree once more. The wary, haunted look had faded from his eyes, replaced by the bright, innocent exuberance of any typical 8-year-old boy. Seeing him thrive in his mother's care soothed the guilt I'd felt over not acting sooner. "Thank you for saving me, Grandma," he said simply one day as we played catch in the backyard. In that moment, all the turmoil had been worth it. Still, the chasm between Colin and I remained. We spoke infrequently, our conversations stilted and awkward. The betrayal he felt, realizing he'd been duped by the woman he loved, ran soul deep. I understood his pain, but my own protective instincts overruled any sympathy. He should have seen Corinne for what she was long ago. As for Corinne herself, I quickly shut down any attempt she made to reach out, be it texts, calls, even letters arriving at my doorstep, each more desperate and vitriolic than the last. Let her rage at the consequences of her own actions. She'd never be allowed near Parker or anyone in our family again. The final unconscionable blow came when word trickled back that Corinne's own lawyer had dropped her case, unwilling to proceed with the criminal child endangerment investigation. Served her right, I thought bitterly. See how it feels to be utterly alone and discarded. Months later, on a crisp autumn day, Elsie invited us all to the park for a family picnic, her, Parker, Colin, and I. The first time we'd all been together, drama-free, in longer than I could remember. As I watched Parker chase leaves, grinning ear to ear, with Colin and Elsie looking on with matching peaceful smiles, I felt something loosen in my chest. This life, this tender new beginning, it was all I'd fought for. Meeting my son's eyes, I gave him a subtle nod of acknowledgement and solidarity. Though our relationship remained fragile, I knew we'd persevere. We had to, for the sake of the exuberant little boy before us, finally allowed to just be a child again. It was the least we could give him after everything he'd endured, a fair, loving chance at life, something Corinne's hatred had nearly stolen away forever.
As an alumnus of Harvard, I will formulate the questions for you. You can't answer that because you haven't done anything for 15 years. You middle school graduate, I'll offer you the job of second-generation president if you can figure it out. I will rank higher than Elizabeth if I am elected as the second-generation president. I can just tell her to cease this crap right now if that occurs. Acting like you've answered it, aren't you getting ahead of yourself? At my new employment, I ran into a friend from my youth again. It seemed inevitable that we would cross paths because I had joined her father's business. She has always denigrated me. She's still trying to get me to take a test and suggesting I'm not a good fit for this company. She has the ideal opportunity to publicly embarrass me because the entire department is in attendance at a meeting. But her expectations won't be met. I've changed since I received a 0 on an exam 15 years ago. She is offering me the job of the president of the second generation, so I might as well accept it. Arthur is my name. I work for a consulting firm that specializes in IT infrastructure, and I am 31 years old. Our primary responsibilities include creating IT settings, spotting issues, and putting fixes in place for everything from network connections to software and hardware. Because they use the internet at home, many think it's easy, but corporate IT infrastructure is a very different matter. Does the business need to install its own servers? Should external servers be used? What is the best way to connect many PCs? What kind of safeguards ought to be in place to keep confidential data safe? Advanced knowledge and technical expertise are necessary for every area of this activity. Nevertheless, I managed to enter this field at the age of 31. I'm a total novice in this field and still don't know what I'm doing. Actually, this is my very first job. I had a hazy feeling that I didn't belong in society until I joined. But on my first day, I really came to terms with it. My name is Arthur. Good to meet you. I made an introduction to my coworkers on my first day of work. I took care to bend my head respectfully and wear my outfit appropriately. However, the other mid-career hire, who began on the same day as me, talked well and confidently, bowed with crisp accuracy, and looked good in his suit. He exuded professionalism and competence throughout his introduction, which was jam-packed with information about his background. On the other hand, my halting introduction, which only included my name and nice to meet you, was incredibly unimpressive. The main distinction between those who had been a legitimate working professional and those who hadn't was this. However, I believe that my introduction conveyed the fact that a troublesome individual had recently joined. I did, in a sense, correctly introduce myself. The client infrastructure department was given to me. I would be a security engineer in this situation. Thomas, the head of the department, guided me to my new group. I made another introduction to the individuals I would be collaborating with. I was greeted with worried looks once more. They didn't need to make the point so plain because I already understood it. I was given the task of observing a senior colleague to gain an understanding of the workflow because I had no idea about anything. Thomas introduced my mentor. I had been feeling her sharp gaze on me for a while, and I already knew she worked here, so I had a feeling this was coming. Why the hell do I have to babysit this guy? Because it's a company order, obviously. I know that. Then don't ask. The way you talk is seriously annoying. Even though I hadn't said much yet, she was already fuming. Following behind my prickly mentor, I was given a tour of the office. The reason my mentor snapped at me right away was that she was my childhood friend. We had been together from kindergarten through middle school. You haven't changed at all in 15 years. What the hell have you been doing all this time? Traveling and gaming. Talking to you gives me a headache. Listening to how carelessly you've lived your life makes me question the meaning of all my hard work, from going to Harvard, to taking over this company, to working my way up through different departments, and everything else I've done. Overworking yourself isn't good for your health, you know. As the future second-generation president, I don't have the luxury of slacking off like you. And unlike you, I can't just rely on connections to get in. Wait, does this count as a connection hire? Of course, it does. My dad and your dad are childhood friends, and your dad used to work at this company a long time ago, right? Let me guess, when you were struggling, you begged your dad for help, and then your dad went crying to my dad, didn't he? Huh. Well, my old man did act as the middleman between me and Mr. Carter, so yeah. I guess that makes me a connection hire. Just like you said. Don't you have any pride? And what about your father? My old man. When I asked my dad about him, he said he used to be a brilliant engineer. Seriously? You mean to tell me that not only do you not care about the world, but you're not even interested in your own father? Even if I don't know what he was like in the past, I know who he is now. Isn't that enough? Like father, like son. My dad is way too nice. Why does he go out of his way to protect you just because your dad is his childhood friend? Protecting me? Obviously. We went to school together until middle school, remember? You must have at least heard the rumors about your dad. He barely worked, left his kid alone, and now I'm supposed to believe he was some brilliant engineer. Yeah, I see your point. Why the hell are you laughing? Elizabeth clutched her head in frustration. She's always hated how laid back I am and the fact that I never go along with her expectations. She told me, "You haven't changed in 15 years." But I'd love to seal that statement in a return envelope and send it right back to her. What is it about me that bothers her so much? I can think of plenty of reasons, but are they really enough to justify how much she dislikes me? I grew up in a single-father household. By the time I was old enough to be aware of my surroundings, my mother was already gone. People often told me it was sad not to have a mother, but since she was never there to begin with, I never felt lonely or wished to see her. I guess even back then, I had already developed my tendency to completely ignore things I wasn't interested in. People also used to say, "It must be tough for you." That's because my family was dirt poor, so poor that you could add at least 3 supers before the word poor, and it still wouldn't be enough. And the reason? My dad was too free-spirited. He bounced from job to job, and sometimes he'd randomly leave home and not come back for years. While he was gone, my grandparents took care of me. When I was with them, I didn't have to struggle financially. When my dad was around, we lived in poverty. But I was just happy to see him again. So, as a kid, I never resented him, nor did I feel like being poor was a hardship. But because my dad was seen as a drifter and our family was poor, people automatically labeled me as pitiful or struggling. Not that it mattered to me or to my dad. We never cared about what people said. But for some reason, Elizabeth always took issue with me. I never understood why. I went to Hawaii over summer break. We go every year, so I'm starting to pick up some English. Elizabeth was always surrounded by people, and every time she spoke, they would chime in with, "Oh," and that's amazing. As the daughter of a company president, she was smart, athletic, and the center of our class. However, back in elementary school, I had no interest in classroom hierarchies, so I never became part of that circle. I guess she was frustrated that a poor kid like me, who was at the bottom of the hierarchy, didn't bow down to her or try to fit in. That's probably why she often stepped away from the center of her group just to talk to me in front of everyone. Hey, I went to Hawaii with my family over the summer. Have you ever been? No, I haven't. Aren't you jealous? Not really. I'm not interested in Hawaii. Not interested. Huh. Sure. Keep pretending. Well then, if not Hawaii, have you ever gone on any trips? Trips? Nah, never. I mean, my dad took me to the mountains and the beach a few times, though. Arthur's family is poor, after all. That's the best he can manage. There's no way he could ever go to Hawaii. I told you, I'm not interested in going to Hawaii. Besides, mountains and the ocean are fun. You can pick wild plants or gather shellfish. What do you even do with those? Don't tell me you eat them. That's seriously disgusting. Elizabeth burst out laughing, and the people behind her followed suit. She was the center of the class. When she looked right, everyone looked right. When she looked left, everyone looked left. If she looked down on me, everyone else did the same. She was probably expecting me to react with frustration, but since I had no interest in Hawaii, I just ignored her and stared out the window. The weather is so nice today. What a waste to be stuck in school. Disappointed by my lack of reaction, Elizabeth would often keep pressing the conversation. I can speak a little English now, you know. But you're terrible at studying, so there's no way you could ever speak English, right? You can speak English, Elizabeth. Yeah, of course. Now, English was something I was mildly interested in, so I actually took the bait. But maybe my response was unexpected because Elizabeth, despite bringing it up herself, looked a bit flustered. How much can you speak? Well, greetings, handing money over when shopping. That kind of thing. Oh, I see. What's with that reaction? My interest immediately deflated like a popped balloon, and I went back to looking out the window. Once again, Elizabeth failed to get the reaction she wanted. I believe this kind of exchange happened at least 3 times a day during elementary school. I never showed interest in anything she said, and yet she never got tired of bothering me. And when we got to middle school, she didn't stop. In fact, her tactics leveled up. She started using her followers to harass me instead of doing it herself. Oh dear, what happened? The floor is soaking wet. Someone kicked over a bucket. That sounds awful. Want me to help? It's fine. It won't take long. You never fight back, do you? You're bad at studying, bad at sports. That's why people keep walking all over you. Want me to help you out? Helping out a poor guy like me won't get you a single cent in return. What? I was just being nice. After finishing cleaning up the mess, I ended the conversation and walked away. Elizabeth yelled at my back, but I wasn't bothered at all. She really wanted me to fall under her influence. As a company president's daughter, she was probably used to getting whatever she wanted. So when something was just out of her reach, it made her want it even more. This kind of harassment continued until we graduated middle school. Arthur, you got bullied all the time in class, yet you just went about your life like nothing happened. You never studied, never played sports. Where the hell did you get that ironclad mental fortitude from? All the time. It was more like occasionally, wasn't it? Yeah, that's just how you are. You don't care about anything around you. You weren't enduring the harassment. You just didn't think anything of it in the first place. That's not mental toughness. It's just indifference. Wow, Elizabeth, you're actually giving me a compliment. That's rare. I'm not complimenting you. I'm exasperated. I heard from Mr. Yates that you're the only one in our class going straight into the workforce. Your English test scores were slightly better than the rest of your subjects, but it's not like you can hold a conversation like I can. You failed most of your other classes and even scored zeros on some tests, right? You better be grateful to the company that picked you up. Oh, I'm going to work, but I'm not getting a full-time job. I'm going to be a part-timer starting tomorrow. What? Are you telling me you don't even care about your own future? My future, huh? It's not that I don't care, but I'm just not interested in the distant future. I'm more focused on whatever seems fun right in front of me. Like father, like son. Your dad is still drifting around, isn't he? Oh yeah, he's drifting so much he could probably rock the earth from one end to the other. Why the hell are you laughing about that? He abandoned you, barely worked, and made you live in poverty, didn't he? Seriously, the more I talk to you, the more my head hurts. With a frustrated sigh, Elizabeth clutched her head and walked away. If talking to me gives her such a headache, she could just stop bothering me. Since our middle school graduation, I hadn't seen Elizabeth once. I rarely went back home, ignored any attempts to contact me, and never attended class reunions or coming-of-age ceremonies. Because of that, I apparently became somewhat of a missing person in my hometown. And yet, after 15 years, I suddenly reappeared in front of Elizabeth. She never liked me to begin with, and now, after all these years, I showed up out of nowhere, getting hired at her father's company through a connection. She must hate me even more now. I'm never going to acknowledge someone like you who's been slacking off for 15 years. Her eyes practically screamed, I'm going to kick you out of this company. A few days after joining, I attended the company's monthly discussion meeting. Apparently, its purpose was to improve workplace culture. It was started as a way for employees of all ranks and departments to engage in discussions unrelated to work, fostering better communication. The company even covered the cost of drinks and snacks. Everyone gathered around the conference table, which was covered with drinks and snacks, chatting noisily. Despite its grand objective, in reality, it was just a casual tea party for each department. Our department members were all together, freely conversing in front of everyone. Since I had just joined the company, this was also my first time attending the discussion meeting. For Elizabeth, there couldn't have been a better setting to publicly humiliate me. Hey, everyone, listen up. Arthur and I have known each other since kindergarten. That means I know a lot about him. For example, his family was super poor. He used to forage for wild plants in the mountains and gather shellfish from the ocean. Hey, that wasn't because we were starving. It was more like survival training, just in case. So there were times when you actually struggled to find food. Well, yeah, on some trips, sure. But because of that, it came in handy. He was also terrible at studying. He even got zeros on his tests. Oh yeah, there were times I just wrote my name and slept through the exam. Now tell me, everyone, our company is responsible for building and maintaining its infrastructure for our clients. This requires knowledge, technical skills, and a secure environment, or else sensitive information could get stolen. Do you really think someone like him can handle that kind of responsibility? After her speech, everyone looked even more uneasy than they did on my first day. Normally, I don't care what others think about me, so I just ignore it. Even if it was about my father, I knew he'd just shrug and say, "Doesn't matter," so I wouldn't bother defending him. But I figured I should at least protect Mr. Carter's reputation. Hey, just so you know, I was actually scouted by Mr. Carter. What? My dad scouted you? That's impossible. It's true, though. So you're telling me my dad wanted you here? Fine, then prove yourself. I'll give you a test. If you have the skills, show us. That way, I can be convinced, and everyone else can see what you're capable of. A test. That sounds like a pain. Too bad. This time, you're not getting away with your usual, "I'm not interested." As your senior employee, I'm ordering you to take it. And since I graduated from Harvard, I'll be the one making the questions. You've been slacking off for 15 years, so there's no way you'll get them right. But if you do, I'll give you the title of second-generation president, you middle school graduate. I don't want something as troublesome as a president's position. Oh wait, if I become the next president, that means I'll outrank Elizabeth. Then I can just order her to stop annoying me. You're already acting like you've passed. Jumping the gun, aren't you? Well then, let's start with English. Wait, start? There's more than one question. That's your fault for not checking in advance. If you sign a contract without reading it, you can't complain about not knowing the details, can you? What? Do you still not understand how things work because you've never had a real job? Fine, fine, fine. But make sure the questions are actually work-related. Of course. This test is to prove whether you're capable of doing your job at this company. Elizabeth smirked. She was probably convinced I'd fail. And to be fair, I am completely indifferent to things I have no interest in. I don't even bother learning them. But if it's something I do care about, that's a different story. Since she's limiting the test to work-related topics, it should fall within my area of interest. All right, let's start by checking your English skills. You'll need them when contacting overseas manufacturers about software and hardware. I'll ask you in English. You always eat wild vegetables, don't you? Do you still talk about that? Do you understand what I'm saying? I can speak English, but seriously, did you have to bring up the foraging thing again, even in English? Oh, now that I think about it, you were a little better at English tests, so you actually kept studying after middle school. Elizabeth had clearly expected me to fail the first question, but since I answered effortlessly, I could see the panic in her expression. If I ended up answering all the questions correctly in front of everyone, it would completely undermine her attempt to humiliate me. Panicked by that possibility, she suddenly disregarded the rules. She quickly scribbled something on a piece of paper and showed it to me. All right, here's the second question. What happens when you combine these two substances? Substances? You mean this diagram with O and H connected by single and double lines? Didn't you learn about chemical structures in middle school? Sorry, at Harvard, we wrote these all the time, so I might have made it a little too complex. Should I lower it to a high school level for you? No, that's fine. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of her diagram. Were you planning to do an image search? That's useless. There's no way you'll find the exact answer. This isn't something you can just look up on some random website. It's only found in advanced textbooks and university references. I figured out the answer, but I had no idea what it meant. Well, I guess I just need to copy this kind of diagram, right? Without even understanding the question, I looked at my phone screen and drew the answer below Elizabeth's diagram. Wait, that's correct? How did you find the answer? I asked someone I know. That's cheating. It doesn't count. There was no rule against using a phone, was there? And besides, you didn't stop me when I pulled it out. If anything, you were the first one to break the rules, weren't you? I didn't break the rules. This is a substance used in computers and servers. That makes it fair. That's a pretty weak excuse. Whatever. That question doesn't count. The next one will be the last. Just how badly did Elizabeth want to humiliate me at this point? Her persistence was starting to feel obsessive, and honestly, a little scary. She hurried over to her desk, grabbed a laptop, and turned the screen toward me. Read this problem and find the hidden file. You joined this company as a security engineer, right? Then you should be able to solve this. Oh, now this is the kind of challenge I was waiting for. Excited, I reached for the laptop, but as soon as I read the question, my enthusiasm disappeared. Analyze the executable file. Find the vulnerability. Exploit it to access the server and retrieve the flag file. The classic process. Man, a Caesar cipher. That's literally page 1 of any textbook. What a letdown. Grumbling to myself, I retrieved the flag file in just 1 minute. There, done. Wait. Oh, you really did it. I had answered all of Elizabeth's questions. That meant I won this challenge. Now it was time for her to keep her promise. Hey, you remember what you said before giving me these questions, right? You mean the thing I said about giving you the second-generation president's position? That was, well, I just said it in the heat of the moment. Besides, I don't even have the authority to decide that. Too bad. A liar is just a politician in the making. You need to keep your word. Now, move over. What? Come on, move. I waved my hand at her as if shooing away a stray dog. Looking utterly confused, Elizabeth stood up from her chair. I immediately took her place and sat down. As promised, I've taken the second-generation president's position. That settles it. Now, Elizabeth, you sit where I was sitting and stop bothering me with this nonsense. Wait. When I said the second-generation president's position, I meant. Yeah, even a middle school graduate like me understood that. But I have no interest in actually becoming president. Sounds like way too much work. That's exactly what I'd expect from his son. Dad? A sudden burst of laughter filled the room, making everyone turn their attention in the same direction. Standing at the center of everyone's focus was Mr. Carter, the company president. It seemed he had been watching our exchange from a distance. I heard you could speak English, but your responses to the second and third questions were impressive. You solved the third one in less than a minute, didn't you? Well, it was just a standard practice problem. You managed to answer the second question correctly. Did you happen to have a friend who knows a lot about chemistry? No. I figured someone would know, so I threw the question into a group chat. There are people from Harvard and Cambridge in there, so I thought I'd get a quick answer. Sure enough, 2 friends, one from India and one from Brazil, replied almost immediately. Since they both gave the same answer, I trusted it and copied the image they sent me without really understanding the problem. But honestly, Elizabeth was right. It was kind of cheating. Not at all. Relying on others or using tools to solve a problem isn't a bad thing. Your approach to the second question showed great problem-solving skills and flexibility in thinking. Harvard, Cambridge, India, and Brazil. I don't get it. Why do you have so many international connections? And how are your security skills so advanced? You mean to tell me, Elizabeth, that he never told you? I definitely explained it. I haven't heard anything. Sure you have. Over the past 15 years, I've been traveling and gaming. Do what's? A series of question marks seemed to float above Elizabeth's head. I guess my explanation had been too vague. Haha, that carefree attitude. You really take after your father. So Arthur's father wasn't a brilliant engineer after all. He was just an irresponsible guy. No, he really was a brilliant engineer, but he pushed himself too hard trying to expand this company. Then one day, it was like something inside him snapped. He suddenly declared, "I'm quitting work to be free," and just like that, he became a traveler. A traveler? That sounds like something out of a manga. Oh, so that's how my old man ended up wandering around the world. You didn't know about your father's past work? I was never really interested in old stories. I just thought, wow, he sure knows a lot about computers. Wait, when you said your dad was a traveler, you didn't mean it metaphorically. He was literally a traveler. I told you, didn't I? He drifts so much he could probably rock the earth from one end to the other. Who would take that phrase literally? So basically, Arthur's dad was a backpacker who traveled the world, which is why he was never home and kept changing jobs. How was I supposed to guess that? My dad's even more eccentric than I am. He'd work for a few years, save up some money, and then immediately take off overseas. And the reasons were always ridiculous, like, I got into playing the gem, so I'm going to meet a tribe on the West African coast. Then he'd end up living there for years because he enjoyed their way of life. Once, he left home saying, I'm going to travel the entire Silk Road without using planes or trains. Even as a kid, I thought, no way. But honestly, I thought that was cool. So after finishing middle school, I became a traveler myself. I'd work as a part-timer to save up money, then travel abroad, repeating that cycle over and over. So during your travels, you went to America and met students from Harvard and Cambridge? No, I met those people through online gaming. What? Gaming? When I was in Indonesia, I made some friends there. One of them introduced me to PC gaming. You know how esports is huge in Indonesia, right? Don't act like that's common knowledge. With online games, you can play with people from all over the world. I got hooked, and as I played, I started connecting with people from countries I hadn't visited yet. My friend list kept growing. Earlier, I said I posted the chemistry question in a group chat. That was actually a group chat for my gaming team. I see. That makes sense. Since you already speak English. Plus, there are translation features in online games. Communicating with others wouldn't be a problem. Elizabeth, you didn't know Arthur speaks 9 languages. 9 languages? No way. You sure have a hard time believing people, but yeah, it's true. I can speak Japanese, English, Spanish, and Portuguese fluently. As for Swahili, Tagalog, Indonesian, Hindi, and Thai, I can handle casual conversations. Your language choices are so random. Why don't you know Chinese, Korean, French, or German? I just wasn't interested and never went to those countries. What kind of logic is that? Still, I can't believe someone as bad at studying as you managed to learn 9 languages. When I'm interested in something, it just sticks in my head. Plus, you pick up a lot just by talking to locals. With Arthur's language skills, he'll be able to communicate with overseas companies beyond just English-speaking ones. It's still in the early stages, but we're considering expanding our company to Indonesia. Companies are rapidly growing there. When that happens, we plan to rely on Arthur's abilities. That's the first I've heard of it. That's because I just told you. As new revelations kept coming to light, Elizabeth held her head in frustration, just like always. But for some reason, she seemed to be smiling a little. By the way, Arthur, what about your security skills? You didn't pick that up from traveling, did you? Could you be Stephen, I wonder? You came to see me. What? Did I not tell you to keep your distance? Isn't it odd that a broke person like you would visit this bank? Oh, perhaps you're here to work as a janitor on the side. Emily White, my former sweetheart from my school days, was the person I encountered at the bank. In the middle of the day, she was walking around with a man, arm in arm. Actually, our encounter at the bank was merely a coincidence. Hey, the CEO of this bank is the son of my current boyfriend. Very different from you, isn't it? It hurts to realize that I was ever in a relationship with someone like you. It's the biggest mistake I've ever made. Hey, could you please step over? I do not wish for your poverty to spread. Emily gave me a shoulder shove. I suddenly remembered the depressing emotions I had experienced in school. Okay, I've made up my mind. Then I said something that made my ex-girlfriend and her wealthy partner look pale. Stephen Taylor is my name. I am 17 years old. I was raised in a wealthier household than most because my father is the CEO of a tech business. I was raised to believe that having anything I desired, be it games, toys, or clothing, was only normal. I had a hazy fantasy of succeeding my father as CEO in order to further improve the business. I was at the top of my class academically, so my vague vision for the future sounded impressive enough to my peers, which gave my goals legitimacy. I was frequently the center of attention at school because I was the son of the CEO and automatically commanded respect from my peers for wanting to hold the same job. In similar circumstances, I even found a lover, Emily White, the famous daughter of a local head of a cosmetics company. Emily was well versed in cosmetics and adept at using the samples her firm supplied. She always took good care of her skin, and many females were attracted to her because of her natural makeup, which even fit her in high school. She was a bright young woman with a keen sense of style. We were frequently praised as the ideal couple because of our comparable status and skill sets. Perhaps I ought to become a CEO if Stephen does. Wouldn't it be awesome to have a few of CEOs? She would say. What a lovely girlfriend she was. But I came to the terrible realization that my money and envy were eventually bestowed by others. I was shocked to learn that my father's business, Taylor Systems, had been the target of a cyber attack that exposed a large amount of customer and corporate data when I started the 11th grade. The company's management was put in danger and its reputation was severely damaged by this episode. It seemed that my father's company was one of the many businesses and organizations targeted during the peak of what appeared to be worldwide cyber terrorism. We only have 8 professionals on our side, even if they are a professional hacker gang. How was the security set up? Were they all just a bunch of amateurs working there? If that company had a data leak, you can bet the public would react strongly. Of course, the hackers were to blame, but I couldn't fully grasp that the company was also responsible for not preventing it. Even with insurance payouts, the losses were massive. Clients canceled contracts one after another, and while the company invested in reinforcing its systems, cash flow problems began. Bankruptcy became a real concern. In the midst of this, my father apologized to everyone, trying to protect his employees and the company. He reduced his own salary to just enough to get by, reallocating the saved money to the business and staff wages. I really didn't understand it. Why did he have to go to such lengths when he wasn't at fault? That's when my father told me something that changed my view on everything. Do you know why CEOs are wealthy? Because they're important, I answered promptly. He shook his head. CEOs have a critical job. They bear the responsibility for everything in the company and must protect their employees. That's why they are paid a fitting salary. Even if it's not their fault, taking responsibility is part of being a CEO. I never knew my father worked with such sentiment. CEOs are incredible. How naive I was, thinking I might want to be one. His words changed my view of society a little. And then, I came to understand the harshness of human relationships. Let me be clear, Emily boldly stated one day. I don't think we're a good match anymore. Maybe we're just from different worlds. The situation with my dad's company was well known at school, especially considering she was the daughter of a company president. Emily must have had the information. If it becomes known that Taylor Systems, a company that lost its credibility, and White Cosmetics and their kids are dating, it could damage us too. I couldn't respond. People have their values, and it's not strange that some think like Emily does now. So, please don't associate with me anymore. It was Emily who once confessed, Stephen, talking with you is fun. You're knowledgeable and cool. That's why I fell for you. She had said it without any of the embarrassment she showed before. Was it all about public image or money in the end? No. Thinking about it anymore is pointless. I considered it a lesson in social studies and quietly backed away. Then, I cleared my head and thought about the future. What should be my priority now? Obviously, my family. Dad, can I join your company even if I drop out of high school? Oh, I don't need a salary, of course. Just as a trade for learning about society. Would that be okay? My sudden proposal shocked my parents. High school, even college, isn't something I must attend right now. But if my father's company goes under, it can't be restored. And so, in my sophomore year, I decided to drop out of high school. The news spread quickly among my classmates, and naturally, Emily found out too. On my last day of school, I was comforted by friends who supported my decision. Well, that makes sense. It's not the time to be in high school, I overheard Emily saying from a distance. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Having known only the world of high school, I first learned the etiquette of being a working adult, then about Taylor Systems, and the very basics of the job. The company now seemed to be divided into two main sections, one for recovery efforts to regain trust, and another continuing with system development as usual. With no knowledge of it, I naturally joined the recovery team as support staff. I was drilled by senior employees on the details of the cyber attack, the company's reflections, and the specifics of future security enhancement plans. I went on many trips to apologize and explain to our clients as part of my training. It seemed like they needed all the help they could get, and as soon as the training ended, I was sent alone to a small subcontractor. Although we had apologized several times, we arranged multiple meetings to maintain relationships, promote our products, and improve security. At 17, I was seen no differently from any regular employee by our clients. I faced stern reprimands, intense questioning, and challenging inquiries. Some companies even told us never to show our faces again. There were times I felt utterly desperate and wanted to run away, but I kept apologizing sincerely. My father and the other employees were going through much harder times. All this time, I had been living comfortably on the money earned by my father and the employees. I had to repay that kindness. That resolve kept me standing firm. When I visited a certain factory, a different person appeared in the reception room instead of the usual sales manager. For some reason, the president himself was there to meet me. Why? What did they want from me? There was no time to ponder these questions. I straightened up even more, realizing the gravity of the situation. As I was about to pull out the documents I always carried with me to start explaining the situation, the person gestured with a hand for me not to bother. We're already informed. No worries. Oh, really? I sincerely apologize for any inconvenience we've caused. No need to apologize so much. Look up. I was taken aback by this different approach. Unlike the sales manager, who always bombarded me with stern questions, the president was having a conversation with a smile. You look quite young. How old are you? I'll be 18 this year. Still a minor then, and yet you're already with Taylor Systems. It's my father's company, actually. Surprised? He asked. Oh, weren't you given the chance to go to college? You're not of the age to work so hard. I chose this myself. I wanted to support my father and the employees in these difficult times, so I insisted on joining the company. I'm still inexperienced and don't know much about society, but I believe I can be of some use. The president took a sip of coffee again and nodded. Your parents have raised you well, haven't they? Thank you. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should be modest, but I nodded honestly, acknowledging that my parents are indeed respectable people. By the way, our sales director is quite the stern figure, isn't he? I almost choked on my words, but calmly denied it. I couldn't possibly agree out loud. No, not at all. He always takes the time to listen, and I'm grateful for that. It's good you think so, but I feel he can be a bit too forceful. That being said, he has mentioned you occasionally and seemed quite pleased. So young and yet so responsible. He's looking forward to the future of Taylor Systems. That's... really? You didn't hear it directly, did you? He may have been tough on you, but behind the scenes, I've only heard good things. That's why I insisted on meeting you today. Just like he said, you're a serious kid. In light of your efforts, we should consider resuming our business dealings. Thank you so much. We owe a lot to Taylor Systems after all. My efforts had finally paid off, and I was overwhelmed with joy. Being able to contribute to the company, to my family, brought tears to my eyes. I expressed my gratitude again and again, careful not to let my emotions show. Almost simultaneously, other clients and partners began to express their forgiveness. Senior employees praised me, but I knew it was all thanks to everyone who kindly taught me from scratch when I was still just a kid. Thanks to my parents, who supported me since childhood, the people at the company, and our clients. I am where I am today because of the involvement of so many people. I learned how important it is to support each other and felt profound gratitude. 10 years had passed since the company faced a turning point. I got out of a taxi in front of a towering building in the heart of a district filled with office buildings in downtown. There, in front of the headquarters of a major bank, which stood out among the rest, I was overwhelmed by its size. I'd approached the entrance as a man and woman came out. I stepped aside to let them pass, my gaze caught by the woman's profile. It seemed she felt my stare. She turned around. Hey, isn't that Stephen? The woman's voice recognizing me and her face brought back memories. It was Emily White, my girlfriend from high school. She was wearing a bank uniform, possibly an employee here. Whether she took over her family's company or worked here for experience, I didn't know or care. Having been addressed by name, I was about to simply nod and enter the building when she spoke again. What? Did you come to see me? I told you to stay away, didn't I? Was it not clear? I was just passing by. I wanted to remark on her self-importance, but shook my head to avoid a scene. It's a coincidence. A coincidence? You don't have any business here, do you? Or maybe you're here for a janitorial job? Our janitors are quite skilled, though I wonder if you'd fit in. Emily, who is he? The man next to Emily was arm in arm with her, likely her current partner. Ah, just an ex. Not really significant, just a brief thing in high school. He became so poor he had to drop out. Such a pitiful guy. You were even kind to someone like that, Emily. That's sweet of you. Why must I be looked down upon by a stranger? The indirectness of it all was particularly irritating. Pleased with the praise, Emily continued to look down on me with a smile. Sadly, I've moved to even higher circles since then. She seemed to believe I was still chasing her, relentlessly talking about unasked details. I got a job here. I'm off to lunch with him now. He's the son of the bank president, the future successor, of course. She boasted as if it were her own achievement. Maybe dating the president's son was a result of her efforts, But just because he's her boyfriend or whatever doesn't mean he's all that impressive. As far as I can tell, what truly deserves respect is the bank president himself and the employees and partners who contribute to the management. Eventually, Emily and her boyfriend might become part of that, but they shouldn't be so arrogant with just their level of professional experience. Arguing would be pointless, so I held back. Important lessons are learned through experience, and clearly, they had no interest in hearing what I had to say. I see. Too shocked to speak, Emily's boyfriend, likely a Morgan since that was the bank president's surname, said, "It's understandable. We aren't really the type to mingle with common folk." Common folk. Yes. You didn't really think you could join our bank, did you? Did you think a commoner like you could get in? What exactly do you mean by common folk? Just that. Ordinary, with nothing special about them. Only the chosen should step foot in this headquarters. After all, you have no business here. Oh, you wanted to see Emily, right? Just try stepping onto the property, and I'll have security throw you out. I can't enter the bank. Of course not. That's troublesome. If I can't be involved, I guess I'll have to close my account here. About $100 million worth. I didn't want to mention the exact amount, but I felt it necessary to make an impact and shut them up. However, they didn't seem to take me seriously. $100 million? My gosh, even if you drop out of high school, you should know how to do basic math. You're quite funny, you know. Do you even realize how much $100 million is? Can you tell me how many bucks you'll need? Seeing them laugh it off, I realized there was no point in continuing the conversation. Leaving the laughing pair behind, I headed toward the bank. Hey, if you go any further. But before I could enter, a suited man came out, recognized me, and greeted me. It's been a while, hasn't it? Long time no see. Prompted by him, I returned the greeting. I saw you from inside, Stephen. Dad? The guy who seemed to be a son of Morgan, Paul, couldn't help but exclaim. Yes, this man was his father, the bank president himself, named John Morgan. John immediately glared at the sound of his son's voice and rebuked him in a calm tone. How many times must I tell you not to call me Dad at work? You're not a child anymore. Act accordingly. Hell, and what's with that arm around her? Even if it's a break, it's still working hours. It's disgraceful. After being pointed out, Paul and Emily detached from each other. Then, turning to face me with his sales smile, he explained, "This is my son. Did he do something rude to you?" It was a parade of rude remarks. How should I convey the extent of the disrespect beyond his imagination? Well, after talking to him, I decided to close our account here. What? His eyes widened in shock, his whole body expressing surprise. I felt bad, but my mind was already made up. Why on earth? Could it be that my son really did something improper? Dad, I mean, President Morgan, why do we have to be so humble with this person? What are you saying? John silenced his son's outburst. He's the president of Taylor Systems, with whom our headquarters have direct dealings. We have direct dealings. Indeed. In just 10 years, I had become the president, having overcome the brink of bankruptcy. My father, as the president of Taylor Systems, recognized my efforts in learning extensively within the company and regaining much of its credibility. Believing the company could be entrusted to me, he transferred executive control more than 10 years ahead of schedule and assumed the chairmanship. Since regaining our lost credibility, the trust between our partners and clients has been stronger than ever. With various support and advice, Taylor Systems has experienced rapid growth. Business magazines have even started saying we are leading the industry with exceptional momentum. Not knowing President Taylor's face, that's what happens when you don't take your job seriously. But Emily said, I had no idea. I only knew him until high school. Is it true that Guy has dealings with our bank? His manner of speaking hadn't changed. He couldn't grasp the situation. "Be quiet, Stephen. Let's talk inside." "No, thank you. Our company values people and employees above all as our philosophy." Paul's demeanor changed completely as our eyes met. However, a company that has people like him, who scorn those with less money as commoners and sit complacently in their positions, especially since he's supposedly the next president, cannot be trusted. John turned pale and was insistent. I felt bad for him, but I thought it was due to his failure in educating his son and hoped he would come to terms with it. Thus, the dealings with Morgan Bank were terminated. Later, when the president personally came to apologize, I learned about the aftermath. Morgan Bank, having lost a significant contract worth about $100 million, became the center of attention both within and outside the industry. I heard that their contracts with several other companies were also at risk as shareholders and the media became fully aware. Moreover, the incident in front of the bank involving me was witnessed by employees, and the narrative that Paul had caused damage to the bank spread quickly. Being a true story, they had no excuse. Furthermore, Paul was not only removed from the list of future presidential candidates, but also got fired to rectify his character. Although John expressed a desire to rebuild trust with our company from scratch, restoring relations wouldn't be easy. Given the son's behavior, it would be difficult to mend ties until the company underwent significant change, a decision my father, now the chairman, and I continued to politely decline. One day, my secretary proposed a new meeting schedule. "It's business-related, but they specifically asked for you, not the sales department." "Really? What's the name?" "It's Emily White from White Cosmetics." From the name, she seems to be from the owning family. I was taken aback. Emily was trying to reach out to me through the company. For what reason? I hadn't heard from Emily since our encounter at Morgan Bank. I don't know what happened to her since, but she probably couldn't continue living as before. Maybe she left the bank to take over her family business. Still, I wondered why she was trying to contact me now. Could it be revenge? I speculated, but I wouldn't know until we met. I decided to accept the meeting. It's been a while. Emily, whom I met in the reception room after 6 months, looked quite worn out, but was still well dressed, appearing like any other professional woman. After being laid off, Emily broke up with Paul, seemingly left with no choice but to return to her family home. There, she discovered the looming crisis her family's business was facing. "Our family business is on the brink of bankruptcy. White Cosmetics." I had not heard such news before, but I recalled that White Cosmetics was a subsidiary, and it was the performance of the parent conglomerate that was in jeopardy. The conglomerate decided to make some companies independent as part of cost-cutting measures. Our company was one of them. That company is being incredibly irresponsible. Independence in name only essentially means a mass layoff. It was clear that being suddenly released from control and left without support meant survival would be unlikely. Such actions shouldn't be taken by a company affecting tens of thousands of lives, but there was no point in my getting angry. "So, what brings you here, Miss White?" I decided to calmly listen to her story. Emily came here not as a former classmate or ex-partner, but as an employee of White Cosmetics. I didn't know the situation at home. I thought marrying well and just working would make money, and I could send some back home. But returning home, I found things had turned out like this. Her fists were clenched tightly on her lap, filled with either anger or sadness. So I decided to work for my family's sake. I pleaded with my parents and managed to join the company to help turn it around, inspired by you, Stephen. No, Mr. Taylor. Her eyes, aflame with determination, were different from when we were in high school or when we met in front of the bank. Honestly, I looked down on you, dropping out of high school to join a company. I thought such a person couldn't possibly be an asset. I assumed your company was doomed, but I was wrong. Seeing you revive the company and live respectably, I couldn't just watch my own company crumble. Emily, like me in the past, had been humbly seeking assistance and innovating products to attract more customers. But it's not going well. My past actions, squandering my former company's dealings, meant I couldn't easily regain trust, which seems to have become known outside the company too. There were baseless rumors, but I realized that regaining lost credibility isn't easy. And I understand that I can't restore your trust by doing nothing. Emily apologized deeply. I'm sorry for all the disrespect and hurt I caused you. I fully understand how much you value people and trust. I'll strive to become someone like you, so please help White Cosmetics. I know it's overly convenient for me to ask. Silence fell in the reception room. Emily stayed completely still, and I pondered. Specifically, what do you need? When I asked, Emily quickly lifted her face and pulled out a file from her bag, spreading it out for me to see. Taylor Systems. We want you to develop a skin health check tool that can be easily used on smartphones and computers. According to our research, 80% of the users of our products. I was genuinely surprised by how smoothly and convincingly Emily presented her proposal, something I hadn't expected in just a few months. That's the situation. However, we can't pay for it right now. So you mean a deferred payment arrangement, right? Yes. All right. Let's collaborate. Really? Oh, thank you so much. Overwhelmed, Emily shouted out, and tears welled up in her eyes. Apologizing, she wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. A completely different person from the one I knew before. And so the rescue project for White Cosmetics was initiated. Employees who had gone through similar situations showed significant enthusiasm. Emily occasionally visited our company for business discussions, each time looking around in wonder. Why is everyone so kind? Honestly, there's no benefit to helping us. The employees attending meetings with Emily consistently offered her words of encouragement. We will definitely revive with our system. Don't give up. I have a personal connection with that company. Maybe we should propose a deal. Even I, as the president, was impressed by their integrity. They are serious about their work, but isn't that a bit too passionate? Do you think so? After the business meeting, Emily and I went to visit the manufacturer of the system equipment and later entered a nearby restaurant to talk about our employees. I never imagined I would have a meal with Emily again. Our company values people and employees. It's not just a one-sided management philosophy. It naturally evolved because everyone understands the necessity of mutual support. That includes not just our employees, but also our partners and clients. People like Emily and her company. It's a wonderful company. I wonder if mine can be like that too. It will be. I guarantee it. With Emily as she is now, I believe she can become an excellent president someday. Sorry, it's a bit inappropriate to laugh at a time like this, Emily suddenly said with a chuckle. I was surprised when she started laughing and noticed her face was blushing. I'm really happy to be called Emily again after so long. Oh, right. I had intentionally avoided using her name, trying to be mindful of our business relationship. It just slipped out. I see. Even as the food was served, we both stared at the table, not touching our meals. I never thought about wanting to start over with Emily after being rejected so harshly. I had no lingering feelings. But she is no longer the same person. Hey, wait. My voice was slightly high-pitched as I braced myself to speak. Stop by, Emily. I couldn't continue speaking. I can't be with you. Not for any silly reason like before, she said with a bashful smile. Rather, it's the opposite. I'm not worthy of you. That's not for Emily to decide. I can't as I am now. What I did to you can't be undone. That's why. That's why I intend to rebuild the company and become someone worthy of you. If there's even a little place for me in your heart, then. All right. Seeing my nod, Emily clenched her fists. For my family, and to become someone worthy of you, I'll do my best. Understood. I support you. Finally, we began to eat. I learned in business that without the support of others, one can't survive. Despite her past mistakes, Emily taught me that people can start over. The saying, "No good deed goes unrewarded," holds true. I, too, can still make a difference to be supported and to support others. We smiled at each other, acknowledging this mutual resolve. 5 years later, the rescue project for White Cosmetics succeeded, and Emily officially became the president. The day when her half-joking high school dream of a couple as presidents might become reality seems not too far away. I'm an overweight, unattractive high school dropout, so they told me to go lost. Then they showered me with beer. Who in the world could have insulted my wife, Emily, like that? Emily started to describe the circumstances. It was Ryan. Ryan. Prior to going to her reunion, she had been concerned about her classmate, Ryan. I had hoped that as an adult, he might have calmed down a little, but obviously that was not the case. So that guy is still pulling the same childish harassment. Emily nodded slightly. I felt a wave of rage toward Ryan rise within me. Don't worry, Emily. I had already devised a strategy in case things happened, and I had known that Ryan might attend the reunion. I gave Ryan a call. He picked up right away. It was only fitting that he responded so quickly given my position. "Well, Mr. Johnson, well, why are you calling at this hour?" I explained to him exactly what he was unaware of. The $600 million project is off the table, Mr. Carter. I'm 35 years old, and my name is Kevin Johnson. Anderson Holdings is where I work. Within the group, our company runs retail outlets and manages wholesale food distribution. We create business plans for these locations, organize marketing initiatives, and oversee daily operations from our headquarters. The business brings in $1,000 million a year. Our revenues will rise considerably more if our current nationwide project is completed effectively. A substantial sum of money is involved in this transaction. As the president of the company, I personally manage the discussions until the project is completely on track. Despite working at such a major corporation, I only graduated from middle school. It was because my parents passed away when I was young. It was an unforeseen accident, something no one could have predicted. I never imagined things would turn out like this. After losing my parents, I was placed in a foster care facility. My world had changed overnight, leaving me lost in grief over my parents' sudden death. I was depressed for a while, but staying stuck in sorrow wouldn't change anything. As time passed meaninglessly, I forced myself to move forward. So, I decided to continue attending school just like before. However, I quickly learned that society often treats underprivileged children harshly. I heard you don't have parents. The one who said that to me as I showed up in worn-out clothes was none other than my classmate, Ryan. Well, must be tough. Huh. I can't even imagine living like that. Poor thing. Ryan was the worst kind of middle school bully, always picking on weaker classmates. I don't remember exactly what triggered his harassment. Was it when he found out I lived in a foster care facility? Or was there some other reason? I can't recall the details, but one thing was certain: Ryan, who was the class leader, had made me his target. His relentless bullying wore me down day by day. Now, where could your textbook have gone, Ryan? You better find it soon, or tomorrow's lessons are going to be tough for you. Having my belongings hidden, being forced into activities I didn't want to do. No matter how much I want to forget those days of harassment, they remain burned into my memory. Memories of bullying never truly fade. They lurk in the back of my mind, ready to surface and torment me at unexpected moments. At this rate, I had no motivation to go to school anymore. On top of that, since I had no parents, I wanted to start working as soon as possible and become independent. In my third year of middle school, I told the staff at the foster care facility. I'm done with school. I'll start working after I graduate middle school. Maybe because they knew what I had been going through at school, the staff didn't try to talk me out of it. After graduating, I started working. My first job was at a convenience store. I chose it simply because I often went there and was familiar with the place. Starting today, you're part of the team. Yes, I'll do my best. Up until then, I had only been a customer, stopping by to grab a drink or snack. But working there as an employee was far more demanding than I had imagined. Even so, I did my best to learn everything my manager, David, taught me. I threw myself into the job, determined to do well. After completing my probation period smoothly, I felt like I was finally getting the hang of things. I was at the counter handling some paperwork when I saw a customer slip a product into his pocket. I reacted immediately. "Excuse me, sir. Please wait a moment." Titch. The man tried to bolt, but I didn't hesitate. I pressed the emergency call button, then ran outside and memorized his car's license plate. His theft would also be recorded by the security cameras. With all this evidence, it was only a matter of time before the police caught him. Sure enough, he was arrested not long after. A few days later, an elderly man who had apparently witnessed the whole thing approached me. That must have been quite an ordeal for you. He was a regular at the store, often coming in to buy cigarettes. It seemed he had been there that day as well. "I heard the shoplifter got caught here the other day. You saw what happened." "Yeah, the alarm went off, and it really startled me." Then he gave me a knowing smile. It might sound inappropriate to say this, but it's not every day you get to witness something like that. It was quite an experience. Honestly, it was my first time dealing with a shoplifter too. Is that so? He nodded, looking impressed. To be honest, I hadn't expected myself to react so quickly that day. Why was I able to handle it so decisively despite it being my first time? Maybe it was because of my sense of responsibility and dedication to my job. Thinking that way gave me a little confidence in myself. You've got guts, so why are you just working a part-time job at a convenience store? Guts? Huh? Yeah, you're bold and quick-witted. I bet you could excel at something far greater than this. It seems like a waste for you to spend your time on a mere part-time job. His words were so unexpected that I was caught off guard. But even if I had guts, landing a good job wasn't that easy. In this world, without an education, it's nearly impossible to land a well-paying job. And depending on the circumstances, finding any decent employment can be completely out of reach. It's not really an interesting story to tell. Tell it if you don't mind. I'd really like to hear it. Seeing how insistent he was, I figured, why not? At that moment, there were no other customers in the store. I could afford to chat a little while stocking shelves. So, I told him about losing my parents and how I started working to support myself. He listened quietly, attentively. His genuine interest encouraged me to keep talking. Maybe, deep down, I had been longing for someone to listen to my messed-up past. Then he made an unexpected offer. "In that case, why don't you come work for me?" Huh. I can guarantee you better paid than a part-time job. Actually, let me introduce myself properly. His business card had his name as George Anderson. Apparently, he was the president of Anderson Holdings. Even someone as clueless about the business world as me had heard of that company. I was stunned. Why would the president of such a major company offer me a job? Why me? I just think it'd be a waste for someone with your dedication and work ethic to remain stuck in a part-time job. So how about it? Would you like to put your talents to use at my company? It sounded unbelievable. I stared at the business card, trying to process it. If I could, I'd say yes right away, but I held myself back. There was no way to confirm that he was really the president of Anderson Holdings. Business cards can be faked after all. I forced myself to think rationally and gave the best response I could at the moment. Would it be all right if I gave you my answer later? Of course. If you're interested, just call the number on the card. I'll be waiting. With that, he simply bought his pack of cigarettes and left. As soon as my shift ended, I rushed back to the foster care facility and examined the card again. Then, using the only computer available there, I looked up Anderson Holdings. When I checked the company's website, I found his photo. George was listed as the president and CEO of the company. I was shocked to realize that he was truly the president of Anderson Holdings. There was no room for doubt anymore. He had genuinely scouted me for a job at Anderson Holdings. A future spent working part-time at a convenience store wouldn't get me anywhere. Even if I started at the bottom, joining a major company was the smarter move. I made up my mind. I would work at Anderson Holdings. On a day off, I gathered my courage and called Mr. Anderson. My heart pounded with nerves. Would I be able to speak properly? Would I leave a bad impression? Hello, this is Kevin. Oh, Kevin. Feeling like my life was about to change, I took a deep breath and gave him my answer. I'd love to accept your offer. I see, he said, sounding pleased. I've been waiting for this call. Welcome aboard. From there, things moved forward quickly. I visited Anderson Holdings headquarters for the first time and had a meeting with the HR department. At the beginning, I was assigned to general affairs, where my tasks included cleaning, making tea, and handling miscellaneous duties. Determined to prove myself, I worked hard and did my best at every task given to me. Eventually, my dedication was recognized, and I was entrusted with administrative work as well. As I diligently took on my new responsibilities, Mr. Anderson unexpectedly approached me. How about trying sales? Huh. Are you sure? With your enthusiasm, I'm sure you'll do just fine. Give it a shot. And so, I was given the opportunity to work in sales. I was 20 years old when I officially became a sales representative. Of course, I didn't master everything right away. Still, I relied on the boldness that Mr. Anderson had recognized in me and kept pushing forward, making sales calls over and over again. Eventually, my struggling sales numbers began to rise. Seeing my own progress was incredibly rewarding, and I threw myself even more into my work. During this time, I met a woman. Her name was Emily. She was working in the accounting department, but in fact, she'd have been my classmate in middle school. Since the headquarters is a large building, employees from different departments don't often run into each other. So, even when I caught a glimpse of her, I only thought it was a coincidence. But during a casual conversation, I found out that she was my former classmate, and I was shocked. I never thought I'd see Kevin working here. I was scouted by Mr. Anderson. Really? I was scouted by him too. Apparently, Mr. Anderson has a habit of scouting students who work diligently at their part-time jobs. Later, when I asked him about it, he told me that many young people with great potential are forced to take part-time jobs due to personal circumstances. To ensure that their talents aren't wasted, he actively reaches out to them. That's why he reached out to both Emily and me. I'm truly grateful to him for that. Good morning, Emily. Good morning, Kevin. Since reconnecting at work, I became close with Emily. Having gone to the same middle school and sharing common memories made conversations easy. I continued working in sales. As I kept putting in the effort, my sales performance improved significantly. Eventually, I became one of the top salespeople in the company. Recognizing my achievements, I was promoted to section chief. Before long, rumors started circulating that I might become the youngest department manager in company history. And then, at the age of 27, Mr. Anderson called me in. I want you to take over as president in the future. What? I was stunned by the unexpected offer. Sure, my sales numbers were high, but for him to suggest such a thing to an employee still in his late 20s, was he serious? Seeing my shock, he explained his reasoning. Your dedication to your work is something I don't see in others. You also have a strong willingness to learn. After you take over as president, I will step into the chairman's role and support you. It may be overwhelming at first, but you'll get used to it. So, will you accept? All right. I wondered if I was truly fit for the role. But I was confident in my achievements, and if I kept gaining experience, I would undoubtedly become the most knowledgeable person about this company. So, I decided to accept the position. From there, my promotions continued, first as the youngest department manager, then division director, and later executive director. A year after becoming an executive director, Mr. Anderson stepped down and became chairman. At 33 years old, I officially took over as president. 2 years have passed since then. I've grown accustomed to my role as president. Then, one day, some news arrived. There's an invitation for a class reunion. Really? Emily handed me the letter that had arrived at our home. It was an announcement for a middle school class reunion. In fact, before I took over as president, I had grown closer to Emily, and we got married. Now she works as my secretary, supporting me and running the company. Anderson Holdings is primarily managed by the two of us, with guidance from the chairman, Mr. Anderson. I read through the class reunion invitation. The date seemed convenient enough. Of course, there was always a chance that work could interfere, but as the president, that was an everyday reality. Should we go? Might as well. It's a good opportunity. There were some unpleasant memories, but most of my friends had been kind to me. The truth was, there were many people I wanted to see again. However, Emily seemed concerned about something. Ryan might be there. Yeah, that's true. Ryan, the guy who tormented me in middle school, could very well show up. That was something we had to be prepared for. Apparently, he's now the president of a company called Carter Foods. Given his arrogant nature, though, it's hard to say whether his business is doing well. Well, maybe he's changed after all these years. I could never forget the way he harassed me. But it's been 20 years. I wanted to believe that he had mellowed out. And if things go south, I've got a trump card. Really? Well, if that's the case, I guess it's fine. Yeah, hopefully, I won't have to use it. Let's just hope he's turned over a new leaf. With that, we decided to attend the reunion together and sent our RSVP. In the days leading up to the reunion, we prepared our outfits and made the necessary arrangements. I also had to adjust my schedule to ensure that no unexpected work obligations would interfere. However, as the president of the company, things rarely go as planned. On the day of the reunion, I had to apologize to Emily. A last-minute meeting had been scheduled out of nowhere. Sorry, Emily. Looks like I'll have to be late to the reunion. A project meeting had landed right on the same day. Since the project was still in its early stages, I had to be involved in setting its direction. Fortunately, the meeting would be held remotely, so I could attend from home. It was more convenient than going to the office, but it still meant I'd be late. Depending on how things went, I might be able to attend the reunion for an hour at best. I understand. It can't be helped, Emily said. Emily was always understanding when work interfered. I know you were looking forward to it. It's okay. If I don't take care of this, it'll cause trouble for everyone at the company. I felt bad. She had probably been excited to go with me. But this was an important nationwide project. As the president, I had no choice but to be involved. When the time for the meeting arrived, Emily had already left for the reunion by taxi. Hoping she'd have a great time, I began the meeting. Well then, Michael, I look forward to working with you today. Likewise, Mr. Johnson. I exchanged greetings with Michael, the representative from the other company. He was a department manager on their side and had been entrusted with overseeing this project. Every time we spoke, he demonstrated a sincerity and competence that made me eager to collaborate with him. His presence was a big reason why I wanted to push forward with this project. About this food product. Yes, regarding the supply chain on our end. We exchanged ideas, discussed the current status, and worked through various issues for an hour. Then, out of nowhere, I heard the sound of my front door opening. I turned around, wondering what had happened. Standing at the entrance was Emily, and she was completely soaked. Emily, is something wrong? No, it's just. Had she walked all the way home in that state? More importantly, what on earth had happened to her? I couldn't just leave my wife like this. I'm sorry, but I'll have to wrap up today's meeting here. Hearing the seriousness in my voice, my business partner seemed to understand that something urgent was going on. Understood. I'll follow up later regarding the schedule. Thank you. I appreciate it. I ended the video call and rushed over to Emily. Emily, what happened? She was crying. She had gone to the reunion. It was supposed to be a fun event. So, what had happened? Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "They threw beer on me and told me to go home because I was a fat, ugly high school dropout." The words were vile. Who had hurled such cruel insults at her? Emily continued, her voice shaking. It was Ryan. Ryan, the very classmate she had been worried about before leaving for the reunion. I had thought that maybe he had matured over the years, but clearly that wasn't the case. He was still pulling the same childish bullying tactics. Emily gave a small nod. Anger toward Ryan was bubbling up inside me. It's okay, Emily. I had anticipated the possibility of Ryan attending the reunion, and I had already prepared for the worst-case scenario. This was my last resort, but given what had just happened to Emily, I wasn't going to hold back. I called Ryan. He picked up immediately. Given my position, it was only natural that he would respond quickly. Well, Mr. Johnson. What brings you to call me at this hour? The $600 million project is off, Mr. Carter. I could hear the moment of shock in his silence. Then, in a panicked tone, he said, Wait, the $600 million project. You mean the one with Anderson Holdings. It didn't take him long to realize what I was talking about. Anderson Holdings and Carter Foods had been working on a major joint project, the very project I had been discussing with Michael earlier. If Ryan caused trouble at the reunion, I had already decided that I would pull the plug on the project, a project worth $600 million. While no money had officially changed hands yet, we had already made significant progress in our negotiations. That's why Ryan struggled to process what I had just told him. Wait, canceling the project? Why? What do you mean, why? Do you even realize what you've done? I don't know what you're talking about. Surely, this must be some kind of mistake. He genuinely seemed clueless about why I was canceling the project. It hadn't even crossed his mind that he was the cause. He felt absolutely no guilt for what he had done. I laid out the truth for him. It seems you decided to throw beer on my wife. What? There was a brief silence as Ryan processed my words. Then, suddenly, he seemed to recall something and let out a stuttering groan. Wait, that woman was your wife, Mr. Johnson. That's right. For the record, he still didn't know that I was also the president of Anderson Holdings. He only knew me as the president from the business negotiations. Hearing my cold tone, he started scrambling for an excuse. Well, you see, it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. You think it's acceptable to pour beer on someone just because of a spur-of-the-moment decision. I pressed him hard, and he was clearly rattled. So, as I said, the $600 million project is off. You'll have to find another partner. Wait. If we lose that project, my company will be in serious trouble. Carter Foods was already struggling. They had staked their entire future on this project with us. But now I was pulling the plug. This would be a devastating blow to them. Please reconsider. If this project collapsed before it even started, Carter Foods could very well go bankrupt. But why should I show Ryan any mercy? Reconsider. Why would I do that? I was furious. Not just because Ryan had failed to grow as a person in the past 20 years, but also because he had humiliated my wife and thrown beer on her at the reunion. How could I possibly forgive such despicable actions? That's all I have to say. Wait, Mr. Johnson. Let's talk this through. Ryan was still desperate, but I didn't care. I hung up the phone. Because I spoke with an intensity one rarely showed, Emily stared at me in shock. She had never seen me this angry before, not since I started my career. I turned to her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Are you okay, Emily? Yeah, I'm okay. Then, in a small, trembling voice, she whispered, Thank you. She probably hadn't expected me to get this upset on her behalf. But as her husband, this was only natural. You don't need to thank me. I had already decided that if Ryan caused trouble, I'd use this project as leverage. We didn't need Carter Foods for this deal anyway. There were plenty of other companies eager to partner with Anderson Holdings on this project. The only reason we had chosen Carter Foods was because of Michael. He was a reliable, trustworthy man, and I felt bad for abruptly cutting the project. I'd have to apologize to him later. But no matter what, Ryan's arrogance could not be tolerated. I would have to find another business partner. As I thought about what lay ahead, Emily took a shower and changed into fresh clothes. With Ryan there, she probably had no intention of returning to the reunion. I had no desire to go either. I wasn't about to give Ryan a chance to make excuses. We could always attend a future reunion instead. Cheers. Dressed in our comfortable home clothes, we clinked our cocktail glasses together. As she took a sip, Emily smiled. Then she said something unexpected. You saved me like this before too. Huh. I grew up in a single-mother household, remember? So Ryan used to pick on me back then too. Emily had indeed been raised by a single mother. Unlike me, though, her parents had divorced. She had attended high school for a while. However, due to financial difficulties, she had to drop out and start working. Since she and Ryan had gone to the same high school, he had known about her situation. After dropping out, she found a job at a restaurant, where she eventually met Mr. Anderson, just like I had. As I recalled her past, Emily spoke again. You stood up for me when Ryan was harassing me. What? You don't remember? She pouted slightly. Hearing that, I searched my memories, and then it hit me. I hadn't always been Ryan's target. His bullying had turned toward me only after I had defended Emily. Stop it. What's it to you? She hasn't done anything wrong. In my memory, all that remained was the fact that Ryan had bullied me. I had completely forgotten the events that led up to it, but Emily had never forgotten that I had helped her. That's probably why, when she realized we were working at the same company, she reached out to me. You haven't changed, Kevin. She blushed slightly and smiled. I realized that perhaps she had started having feelings for me back when I stood up for her. And now that we were married, it felt as if I was witnessing that moment all over again. The difference between then and now was that I had power. That was why I had been able to protect her this time. Seeing her smiling like that made me feel a little embarrassed, and I scratched my cheek. At the same time, I felt happy, like our bond had deepened even more. The next day, I returned to work as president. As expected, the $600 million project with Carter Foods was officially scrapped. I'm sorry, Michael. No, I understand. This is Mr. Carter's own doing. If anything, I should be the one apologizing. Michael gave a wry smile. To be honest, his arrogance has been a problem for us too. Maybe this will be a wake-up call for him. Oh? Is that so? Yes. I was relieved that he understood. I had worried that Michael might be upset, but hearing his response reassured me. Actually, I'm planning to leave Carter Foods soon. Oh, really? Yes. Now that the project has fallen through, there's no reason for me to stay. Besides, dealing with Mr. Carter's arrogance has been exhausting. It seemed Ryan had been treating his own employees with the same arrogance. I couldn't help but chuckle at what a terrible leader he was, so I made him an offer. In that case, why don't you come work for us? Are you serious? I'd be glad to have a dedicated and honest employee like you. Think about it. Thank you. I'll definitely give it serious consideration. Michael's response was enthusiastic. Of course, the final decision was his, but I would be happy to work with him again in the future. The project had been scrapped once, but we were already close to securing a new partner. The reunion had turned into a mess, but everything else was moving forward smoothly. However, just when things seemed peaceful, trouble arrived unexpectedly. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Carter is here. I never expected Ryan to show up at Anderson Holdings headquarters unannounced. His sheer audacity left me exasperated. He's been demanding to see you. We had already found another company to partner with. There was no reason to engage with him anymore. But Ryan had staked his entire company's future on that $600 million project. Without it, he likely had no way to keep his business afloat. Still, letting him continue making a scene here wouldn't help anyone. I decided to hear him out. Mr. Johnson. What do you want, Ryan? I told you the project is off. I stepped out to meet him. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened in shock. You, Kevin? Oh, you hadn't realized. His entire body stiffened. He didn't realize that I, my wife's husband and the president of Anderson Holdings, was the same person he used to bully back in middle school. He probably thought I had been holding a grudge since then, but instead of apologizing, he immediately became desperate and combative. If you cancel that project, do you even understand what will happen? Oh, and what will happen? My company could go bankrupt. Did he really think that was a valid threat? I sighed, exasperated by his pathetic attempt at intimidation. If your company's survival depended on this deal, then you should have been more careful about how you conducted yourself. You were the one who betrayed us by throwing beer on my wife. We were fully committed to the project, and if not for your actions, we would have seen it through to the end. That's because I didn't know Emily is your wife. He kept making excuses, refusing to take responsibility for his actions. How could anyone trust a company run by a man like this? Ryan stomped his foot in frustration. Damn it. Just restart the project with us. Unfortunately, we've already chosen a new partner. Carter Foods is no longer in consideration. Don't screw with me. If my company goes under, how do you plan to take responsibility? No matter what I said, Ryan kept shouting. Maybe he had no intention of leaving until I agreed to restart the project with Carter Foods. How could I get him out of here? As I was thinking, an unexpected person arrived. Mr. Carter. Emily. What do you want? Emily had appeared in front of us. I had asked her to wait in the office, but it seemed she had decided to come here instead. I had worried that she might be afraid of Ryan, but that wasn't the case. Why have you come here? Obviously, to restart the project. And you have the audacity to say that? You tormented us in middle school, and even as an adult, you continue with these disgusting antics. Emily finally let out everything she had been holding back. At the reunion, she had been too overwhelmed to respond, but deep down, she must have had countless things she wanted to say. She had suffered at Ryan's hands both as a child and again just a few days ago. There is no way we will ever restart a project with someone like you. Now leave. Damn it. Emily's fierce expression and sharp gaze were enough to make Ryan finally feel intimidated. I even considered calling the police if he insisted on staying at the company, but in the end, he tucked his tail between his legs and ran away. Emily and I exchanged glances. She seemed relieved to have finally been able to stand up to Ryan. In the end, Carter Foods went bankrupt. Despite the company's poor financial situation, Ryan had staked everything on a project with our company. However, his terrible attitude ultimately led to its downfall. It was entirely his own fault, and even the employees of Carter Foods were apparently fed up with him. Unwilling to give up his status as company president, Ryan tried to start a new business, but as expected, he failed. Burdened with massive debt, he now barely scrapes by, working part-time at a convenience store. Meanwhile, I've been busy managing Anderson Holdings alongside Emily. By the way, Michael resigned from his previous job and has now joined us at Anderson Holdings. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's all good. In fact, I'm happy to be working with you from now on. Looking forward to it. The group's management is running smoothly. Both Emily and I only graduated from middle school, but looking at how well Anderson Holdings is thriving, no one would think our academic backgrounds mattered. More than education, it's the years of experience we've built here and our passion for the job that have driven our success. Mr. Johnson, could you review this document? Thanks, Emily. We exchanged smiles. Seeing how well we were handling things, Mr. Anderson seemed at ease, trusting us with the company. At this pace, I want to continue leading the company as president, working side by side with Emily. Ken is my name. I'm just a regular worker. I lost my wife, Emily, in an accident 15 years ago. Even though the sadness has progressively subsided, I still think about Emily every single day. I was devastated to learn that she had perished in an accident because I loved her so much. I spent many nights crying because I felt like my heart was being crushed by the idea of Emily, who was always there for me, never showing up in front of my eyes again. That was undoubtedly the lowest point of my life. I am now 45 years old, somehow. Family and friends have proposed that I be married again, but I'm not into the concept and have kept saying no. I still secretly think Emily is the only person I could ever be with. I'll probably be unmarried for the rest of my life. I had that thought. But all of a sudden, a tipping point came. It took place when I visited a customer to discuss a contract. For the first time in a long time, I felt anxious on that day. The reason was that Smith Group, a large firm, was my counterpart this time. Jack Smith, the company's president, created the business enterprise Smith Group from the ground up. Its yearly revenues surpass ours by an incomparable margin. Even though I had other work to do, my employer gave me this negotiation since he thought that such a company would sign a contract with us. I whispered to myself, the responsibility is heavy, as I felt the strain. But I've worked in this field for more than 20 years. I've been in a lot of situations. I put so much effort into my work after my wife passed away that some of my coworkers began referring to me as the ace. To be honest, being called that is a little embarrassing, but I gave the negotiation my best since I wanted to meet expectations. The person in charge then gave me a smile in response to their request. That was when the agreement was finalized. I greeted them and said, "Thank you very much," before letting out a breath of relief. I would be spending the following 2 to 3 weeks at Smith Group to explain because there were some things that needed to be worked out. I arranged the time and date and then walked out of their office. Will was overjoyed when I called to let him know that the discussion had gone well and exclaimed, "We're going out to drink tonight." For now, he asked me to return to the office at my leisure to discuss the details, so I boarded the bus. Maybe I should grab something to eat at a shop on the way. That's what I thought as I gazed at the shopping street outside the bus window. But then, when I saw a utility pole on a road slightly away from the shopping street, my heart skipped a beat. That place is still a painful spot for me. It's where Emily, my wife, died in an accident 15 years ago. She was trapped between a car and a wall near that pole. Just imagining your loved one in such a state is unbearably painful. I took a deep breath to calm myself. That's when it happened. Suddenly, a woman in front of me started gasping for air and crouched down in distress. I instinctively asked, "Are you okay?" She looked to be in her early 20s. She seemed about to collapse, so I wanted to support her. But not wanting to touch a young person without permission, I awkwardly moved my hands in the air. "I'm okay," the woman said and forced a smile at me, but her face was turning increasingly pale. I couldn't just leave her like that, so even though it wasn't my intended stop, I suggested we get off the bus together. Then, I helped her to a bench at the bus stop and made her sit down. "Sorry for bothering you during your busy time." "It's okay. I have some time as I'm just returning from a meeting." I responded with a smile to the woman, who looked apologetic with furrowed brows, reassuring her. She seemed to calm down a bit and started speaking again. "Thank you for helping me. It's strange. I thought I was okay lately," the woman weakly smiled. "Do you have any chronic illness? You've been holding your heart since a while back." When I asked her, she replied with a bitter smile, "Actually, my heart is fine. It's just that due to a car accident in the past, I sometimes have these attacks. Just now, on the bus." As she recalled the incident, tears began to stream down her face. I was surprised, but quickly reassured her that she didn't need to explain if it was difficult. "Actually, I lost my wife in a traffic accident too. There was a time when I was scared just to see a car, so I understand how you feel." Hearing my words, the woman's eyes widened, and she murmured softly, "Is that so?" It seemed she might have symptoms similar to depression. I didn't want her to talk about the accident because I didn't want her to relive the trauma. "Here, take this." I handed her a bottle of water I had bought from a vending machine near the bus stop. She took the water from me with an apologetic look on her face, yet gratefully said, "Thank you." I stayed with her until she calmed down, and after a while, she called a taxi and left in the opposite direction. It seemed resolved. But then I noticed a shiny keychain on the ground. She must have dropped it before getting into the taxi. It was a basketball keychain with the names of an elementary school and a club team engraved on it. It could be a keepsake. I regretted not asking for her contact details just in case. The next day, as I returned to Smith Group for a meeting, I suddenly heard a female voice exclaim, "Ah!" When I turned around, I saw the woman from the bus the day before. "You are from yesterday. Why are you here at our company?" "Ah, I'm here for a business meeting." After explaining the situation, she was surprised and said, "What a coincidence." "Are you an employee here?" I asked. "Yes, I work here at the reception." "Oh, my name is Maria." "Smith." "Oh, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Ken." "You said Smith?" Hearing the familiar surname, I looked up. Maria then said, "Yes, I'm the daughter of the president, Jack Smith." She said it with a shy smile. I was surprised. "I had no idea you were the president's daughter." Amazed, I remembered the keychain I found and handed it to Maria. "Oh, I've been looking for this. Did you pick this up?" She seemed very surprised. "I was planning to take the bus frequently for meetings with Smith Group, so I kept it with me, hoping to return it to you. If not, I plan to hand it over to the police. I'm glad I found you so soon." Relieved that I could return it, a smile spread across my face. Then I noticed Maria's face turning red. "Ken, you're such a kind person. I've never met a man as kind as you." She looked at me with a dreamy expression. Then, suddenly, with a determined gaze, she asked, "You're coming here tomorrow too, right?" Yes." Her intense gaze made my heart skip a beat. Unexpectedly, I found myself receiving proactive advances from the president's daughter. "Hey Ken, let's go out together sometime." Every time Maria saw me, she would come closer, inviting me on a date. A date. But I'm a 45-year-old man. What would people say if I went on a date with a young and beautiful woman like you? What's that? I'm a proper 23-year-old adult. I'm not a student, so you can't reject me like that. I chuckled awkwardly at Maria's devilish smile. I had never met such an assertive woman before. However, I continued to gently decline her invitations for a date, considering her position as the daughter of a client's president and the societal perspective on our age difference. Over 20 years. There were endless barriers between me and Maria. But the biggest reason was the guilt I felt toward my deceased wife. I remembered the words of my proposal to my wife. I will make you happy. I knew my wife was no longer here, but I thought that dating Maria might make those words I said to my wife seem like a lie. However, the next day, when Maria invited me for a date as usual, I lightly brushed it off. No, you should go out with younger guys instead of someone like me. She suddenly started crying. What's wrong, Maria? I panicked. It's just, no matter how hard I try to approach you, you never seem interested. And with that, she burst into tears like a child. I'd never imagined she was so serious about me of all people. Okay, I'd understand. Let's go out for a meal next time. She asked with a hopeful expression. Really? With her eyes moist with tears, she looked at me intently. Of course. I'm not sure where young people go these days, though, I said hesitantly. Maria confidently responded, Leave it to me. Seeing her face change from tears to a bright smile, I couldn't help but laugh at her quickly shifting expressions. And so, we ended up going on a date at a nearby cafe. Maria looked stunning in her casual clothes. She inherited her beauty from her mother. As she said that, I thought that the wife of a major company's president would naturally be beautiful. My mother was quite proactive, you know. Maria spoke about her mother. She purposely went to my father's company, caught his eye, and initiated conversations. A real panther. My mother is a panther. Huh. I silently thought that Maria definitely inherited that gene. As the date ended, Maria looked up at me with pleading eyes and asked, Will you meet me again? Yes. Eventually, I found myself repeatedly going on dates with her, persuaded by her insistence. Me? An old man? Is that really okay? Her aggressive demeanor left me confused, yet I could sense her seriousness, not just playing around. It was only a matter of time before my feelings started to waver as I faced her straightforwardness. One day, I sat in front of my wife's altar. What should I do, Emily? I haven't felt this way in a long time. I'm really sorry. I apologized. I was spending more and more time thinking about Maria. Can I really allow myself to fall for Maria? Confused about my feelings and pondering my future, I remembered a conversation I had with my wife. What would you do if I cheated on you? She asked with a teasing smile. I was startled, but she quickly added, It's just hypothetical. This was after a friend of hers divorced due to her husband's infidelity. They were a happy couple, but infidelity ended their relationship. It seemed she was shocked by that harsh reality, so she was curious and asked me. I replied, I don't even want to think about you cheating. Then Emily responded with a slightly happy expression, saying, Is that so? Then I asked, What if I cheated on you? She said, Of course, I would divorce you, and glared at me in a loud voice. I was taken aback, but then she softened her expression and said, But if I were to die, you should find someone else and be happy. I was struck by her words. Remembering such a conversation now seemed so unexpected. But then, looking at my wife's portrait, I'd wondered, would Emily forgive me? Finally, I made a decision to respond sincerely to Maria's feelings, who cared for me so much. Later, I called Maria and asked her out on a date. She seemed a bit surprised and said, It's unusual for you to ask me out. I planned to propose a relationship to Maria on that date. However, her response was shocking. I can no longer meet you, she said. I was momentarily stunned and asked, Maria, is something wrong? But Maria remained silent. Is there someone else you like? I guess an old man like me. You're tired of me, I said. As I said that, she yelled at me, "Stop calling yourself an old man." After a while, I could hear her sobbing over the phone. She tearfully appealed to me, "I really like you, Ken. I just can't help it. But I can't. I don't deserve to be with you." I didn't understand what she meant as she continued crying. As Maria was about to hang up, saying goodbye, I urgently said, "Wait, please," trying desperately to stop her. "There's something I have to tell you." As I said this, Maria whispered, "Okay," and then added, "I have something to tell you too." She then suggested, "Can we go on one last date?" Since she insisted, I agreed to follow her to a place she wanted to visit. Days later, Maria led me to a location far from any typical date spot. It was near that shopping street. My heart started to beat uncomfortably fast. Maria, without a smile today, led the way in silence. Where was she taking me? "Just a little further," she said without looking back. Maria kept walking without looking at me. "No, it can't be," I murmured to myself repeatedly. Despite my disbelief, Maria continued walking towards that place, to the very spot where my wife had her accident. Then Maria turned to face me once again. "This is where your previous wife died, right?" "Yes, it is." I had told Maria the details when she asked about my wife's death on our previous date. I remember her being shocked then. 15 years ago, after hearing about the accident, I suspected and checked. "I've seen your wife before." "What do you mean? Where?" Maria slowly opened her tightly sealed lips. "I was in the passenger seat of the car that hit your wife." I was stunned. The shocking revelation left me speechless. Maria continued apologizing through her tears. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." The driver at the time of the accident was a 19-year-old university student. He didn't give off a distinctive character at first impression. Rather, he seemed quite serious. The car had a new driver's mark, and there was no sign of speeding or distracted driving. He had just gotten his license and was inexperienced. After entering a poorly visible road, my wife suddenly appeared in front of the car. He tried to brake, but in his panic, he confused the accelerator and the brake, hitting my wife. I heard this testimony in court from the young driver. His words were sincere, and I could tell he was genuinely remorseful and trying to face his guilt. This made the accident even more tragic. The young driver was a university student and a basketball player. On weekends, he coached a basketball club at his old elementary school. That day, he was in the process of dropping off students at their homes. He seemed to be a kind-hearted person. Somehow, it felt wrong to blame just this student. There was no mirror at that corner, and no guardrail was installed. There were clear safety deficiencies. So I told him to focus on safe driving in the future and did not blame him further. After the accident, mirrors and guardrails were installed at the site, and I chose to believe that my wife's death was not in vain. This was all I vividly remembered. I had forgotten, but the young student, Maria, was in the car at the time. I didn't remember the name of the child in the passenger seat. According to Maria, the accident still haunts her in her dreams. The moment my wife was trapped between the car and the wall. I knew Maria had trauma from a car accident, but I never imagined it was from the perspective of the offender. The time she had the seizure on the bus was precisely when we passed the scene of the accident. I always wanted to bring flowers every year, but I couldn't. I'm so sorry. Maria continued to apologize tearfully. At the moment of the accident, I was talking to the coach. I innocently asked how my shots were that day. Then, the accident happened. If I hadn't distracted the coach, maybe your wife wouldn't have died. Maria said this and then bowed deeply to me, saying, "I won't go near you again." Her words pained me, and I instinctively said, "Maria, it's not your fault," while stroking her head. "That accident was beyond your control. You just happened to be in the next seat. You're not to blame. I don't want you to suffer anymore. Before I knew it, I was holding Maria in my arms. She cried in my embrace. The university student who was driving has already paid for his mistake. As long as he continues to live without causing another accident, that's enough for me. I believe my wife in heaven would think the same. So, I couldn't finish my sentence. I couldn't decide then whether it was right for me to fall for Maria. Maria was also unsure whether it was okay for her to like me. Even though we had mutual feelings, we were uncertain whether to cross that barrier. As time passed, yet I continued to stay in touch with Maria. Our conversations about daily happenings and good food were enjoyable, albeit simple. Eventually, I asked her out on a date and expressed my feelings to her. She asked me, "Am I good enough for you?" After nodding, I embraced her. Despite the twists and turns, we decided to start a relationship. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I just want to be with Maria. I believe my wife in heaven would support our relationship.